Hello friends, welcome back. First of all, tell me where in the world you're watching my video from. The morning began the way so many dangerous things do. Quietly, politely, without urgency. Tuesday, October. The kind of autumn morning where the light feels thinner, filtered through clouds that never fully commit to rain. Vincent Callahan woke before his alarm, as he always did now. Age had stolen sleep before it touched ambition. At 69, his body rose out of habit, not rest, carrying the weight of decades spent building something meant to last longer than he would. The house was still, too still. The colonial on Round Hill Road had been his and Eleanor's for 30 years. 10 years since she died, and yet some mornings he still expected to hear her footsteps above him, the soft rhythm of slippers moving toward the staircase. Grief didn't announce itself anymore. It lingered. It waited. It hid in empty rooms and untouched coffee cups. Vincent dressed slowly, buttoning his shirt with the precision of a man who'd learned that control was survival. He paused at the mirror longer than usual. His face looked older this morning. Pale. Drawn. He told himself it was the light. It was always the light. Downstairs, the smell of coffee drifted through the kitchen. Dorothy Palmer had already arrived. She had worked for him for 20 years. Longer than most marriages lasted. Longer than many friendships survived success. She was efficient, quiet, invisible in the way only people who noticed everything could be. For 2 decades, she had known the rhythms of his life better than most people who shared his blood. But something was wrong today. Vincent felt it before he saw it. Dorothy stood at the counter arranging the coffee service, her movements careful, almost rehearsed. The porcelain cups clinked too softly. Her hands shook, just enough to notice if you were looking. And Vincent had built an empire by noticing what others ignored. "Morning, Dorothy," he said. She startled. Not dramatically. Just enough. "Good morning, Mr. Callahan." Her voice was steady. Too steady. Like someone gripping a railing in a storm. Vincent watched her as she poured the coffee into his favorite blue porcelain cup. The one Eleanor had chosen years ago because it reminded her of the ocean. Dorothy's eyes kept drifting toward the window, then the hallway, then back to the cup. She adjusted the saucer twice. Straightened a napkin that didn't need it. "You all right?" Vincent asked. "Yes, sir." The answer came too quickly. He nodded, filed it away, and carried his cup into the study. The room smelled like leather, old books, and power. A scent earned over 4 decades of contracts signed and battles won. Callahan Development Corporation had grown from a one-man operation into a $22 million real estate empire. Vincent had survived market crashes, hostile takeovers, and recessions that destroyed men half his age. But today wasn't about business. It was about family. Marcus had called the night before. "Dad, we need to discuss the succession plan. It's time." The words had sounded respectful, reasonable. But Vincent had replayed the call twice after hanging up, listening for something underneath the tone. Pressure, urgency, hunger. Marcus was 42 now, married, polished, adequate. He'd worked at the company for 5 years. Never exceptional, never terrible. Vincent had told himself that loyalty mattered more than brilliance. That blood deserved patience. That legacy meant continuity. At 10 sharp, the doorbell rang. Vincent didn't flinch. Marcus arrived in an expensive suit that fit perfectly, but wore like a costume. He kissed Vincent's cheek, brief, perfunctory, already halfway past him mentally. Lillian followed, carrying pastries and an insulated coffee carrier like an offering. She smiled the way people do when they believe they're winning. "Morning, Dad," Marcus said. Lillian set the carrier on the counter. "I brought your favorite dark roast. That new place on Newberry Street." Vincent hesitated. Dorothy's coffee was already prepared, sitting where it always sat. Warm, familiar. But Lillian was already setting out new cups, moving with confident ownership, as though the kitchen belonged to her. The coffee smelled different. Sharper, bitter, not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. "You're so thoughtful," Vincent said, accepting the cup. Lillian watched him take it. Not casually, intently. They moved into the study, Marcus spreading paperwork across the desk with the efficiency of someone eager to get signatures. Titles, transfers, formalities dressed as inevitability. "We just need you to sign these today, Dad," Marcus said. Nothing complicated. Vincent reached for the cup. That's when Dorothy appeared. She carried a tray of papers, unnecessary papers, and something in her gait was off. Her foot caught the edge of the rug. The tray tilted. Papers scattered across the floor. Coffee sloshed dangerously close to the edge of the desk. Dorothy, Marcus snapped. She stumbled again, clumsier than Vincent had ever seen her in 20 years. Then her mouth was at Vincent's ear. "Don't drink it, sir," she whispered. "Please, just trust me." Her hand struck his arm. The coffee spilled across the mahogany desk, dark liquid spreading like a stain that couldn't be undone. Chaos erupted. Marcus cursed. Papers soaked through. Lillian jumped up, her voice sharp with irritation. "God, Dorothy, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Callahan," Dorothy said, over and over, dropping to her knees to clean the mess, apologizing too much, too fast. In the confusion, Lillian grabbed one of the cups. Vincent couldn't tell which one anymore. Time collapsed in a noise, apologies, irritation, movement, and then Lillian lifted the cup and took a long drink. Dorothy looked up. Relief flashed across her face like sunlight breaking through clouds. 5 minutes passed. Marcus complained about ruined documents. Lillian dabbed coffee off her blazer, muttering about dry cleaning. Dorothy cleaned silently, hands still trembling. Vincent sat back, his heart pounding not from fear, but from the echo of a whisper that refused to leave his mind. "Don't drink it. Trust me." Then Lillian went pale. It happened so quickly it felt unreal. One moment she was standing, annoyed, brushing off her sleeve. The next, her hand gripped the back of a chair. "I feel strange," she said. "Honey." Marcus moved toward her. "What's wrong?" "Dizzy," she whispered. "Everything's spinning." She tried to stand. Her legs gave out. Lillian collapsed. Vincent saw, immediately, the tremor in her hands, the sweat blooming on her forehead, her pupils contracting into pinpoints. "Call 911, Vincent said. Marcus already had his phone out. Too quickly. "Yes," Marcus said into the phone, his voice cracking in precisely the right places. "My wife, she's collapsed." Lillian's body went rigid. She convulsed, arching violently as the coffee cup shattered against the floor. Dorothy moved with practiced urgency, turning her onto her side, protecting her airway. Vincent knelt beside them, his mind racing through possibilities that no longer fit. Food poisoning, stroke, seizure. But none of them explained Dorothy's warning. The coffee. The cup meant for him. The ambulance arrived in 6 minutes. Paramedics flooded the room with controlled urgency, questions overlapping, IVs inserted, monitors beeping. Lillian was loaded onto a stretcher and rushed out the door. Vincent watched Marcus. Not when he was speaking. Well, he thought no one was looking. There was no fear on his face. No panic. Only calculation. Vincent had spent 42 years learning to read people. It was how he'd built his fortune, how he'd survived betrayal before. He knew the difference between shock and performance. And Marcus was performing. The automatic doors of Greenwich Hospital hissed open. Lillian was wheeled straight into a trauma bay. A doctor appeared, composed, observant, eyes already connecting dots. "What happened?" she asked. Marcus answered smoothly. "Coffee. Collapse. Convulsions." The doctor examined Lillian, her brow furrowing. "Any known allergies?" "None," Marcus said. "Her pupils are severely constricted," the doctor murmured. "Heart rate erratic." She turned sharply to a nurse. "Full tox screen. CBC. Chem panel. Add arsenic levels." The word landed like a gunshot. "Arsenic." Marcus blinked. "Arsenic? That's extreme." Covering bases, the doctor said, already moving. Then she turned to Vincent. "You were present when this happened." "Yes." "Which cup was meant for you, Mr. Callahan?" The question struck him harder than anything else that morning. I don't know." She nodded slowly. "We're drawing blood from you as well." If that coffee had been meant for him, she didn't need to finish the sentence. A police officer arrived shortly after. "Mandatory reporting," the doctor explained. Suspected poisoning required law enforcement notification. Marcus shifted in his seat. "Poisoning? This is insane." No one responded. 90 minutes later, the doctor returned with a tablet and an expression that told Vincent everything before she spoke. "Your daughter-in-law has acute arsenic poisoning," she said. "Lethal dose. She's critical." Vincent didn't move. "And you," she continued, turning to him. "You have chronic arsenic exposure. Low dose. Over approximately 3 months. 3 months. July, August, September. The fatigue he blamed on age. The nausea he dismissed. The confusion during board meetings. Someone had been killing him slowly. Today was supposed to be the end. Vincent looked through the glass and met Marcus's eyes. For just a moment, the mask slipped. Not guilt, not fear, calculation. One thought echoed through Vincent Callahan's mind, steady and unmistakable. I was supposed to be dead, and the people who planned it were sitting 10 feet away. The word arsenic didn't fade with time. It settled. It lodged itself into Vincent Callahan's chest and stayed there, heavy and unmoving, like something foreign his body didn't know how to reject. The hospital room buzzed with muted activity, machines humming, shoes squeaking against polished floors, voices lowered out of professional courtesy. But Vincent heard none of it clearly. Every sound felt distant, distorted, as if he were underwater. 3 months. That was how long someone had been feeding him death in fractions, small enough to look like age. He sat in the narrow consultation room while a nurse taped cotton to the crook of his arm. The blood draw was routine, gentle, almost tender. He watched the dark red fill the vial and wondered how much of it had already been poisoned without his knowledge. Dr. Judith Martin stood across from him, arms folded, eyes sharp with concern that had already crossed into certainty. "We're starting chelation therapy immediately," she said. "It binds the arsenic and helps your body eliminate it. You're lucky." Lucky. The word felt obscene. "Who has access to your food and beverages?" she asked. Vincent didn't answer right away. The question was too precise, too damning. "My son," he said finally. "His wife. And my housekeeper." Dr. Martin nodded once, already knowing where this was going. A detective will want to speak with all of them. Through the glass window of the consultation room, Vincent could see Marcus standing in the hallway. His phone was pressed to his ear, his free hand moving quickly, fingers tapping with urgency. Texting, deleting, adjusting the story in real time. Vincent watched him with a stillness born of shock. He had taught Marcus how to negotiate contracts, how to spot weaknesses, how to control a room. Without realizing it, he had also taught him how to lie convincingly, how to perform concern, how to appear human while doing inhuman things. Marcus looked up. Their eyes met. For one fraction of a second, the son Vincent thought he knew vanished completely. What remained was something colder, focused, evaluating. Vincent understood then, with terrifying clarity. This hadn't been a mistake. This wasn't desperation. This was strategy. A police officer entered the room. Officer Rodriguez. He spoke calmly, professionally, explaining the protocol. Suspected poisoning required a report. Statements would be taken. Evidence preserved. Marcus protested weakly from a hallway. "This is getting out of hand." No one listened. 90 minutes after that, Dr. Martin returned with confirmation that stripped the last illusion away. "Mr. Callahan," she said, her voice steady but grave, "your exposure pattern suggests deliberate administration. Someone has been poisoning you slowly over time." Vincent nodded once. He didn't need convincing. He thought of the mornings he'd woken nauseous, the days his hands trembled during meetings, the way Marcus and Lillian had started insisting on preparing his coffee, his meals, framing it as care, concern, family. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was meticulous. Later that night, after the police finished their initial questions and Marcus left under the pretense of exhaustion, Vincent lay awake in a private hospital room, staring at the ceiling. The lights were dimmed. The machines kept him company. He didn't sleep. At dawn, he left the room quietly, walking past nurses who smiled kindly, unaware that the man they treated had just survived an attempted murder by his own child. He found Dorothy in the hospital chapel. She sat alone in the last pew, rosary beads wrapped tightly around her fingers. Her shoulders shook as silent tears fell into her lap. She looked older there, smaller, like someone who had carried a secret far heavier than herself. "Dorothy," Vincent said softly. She looked up, eyes red, breath catching. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Callahan." He sat beside her. The chapel smelled like old hymnals and furniture polish. It smelled like Eleanor. Sunday mornings. A life that existed before poison and betrayal. "You saved my life," Vincent said. Her hands trembled harder. "I should have told you sooner," she whispered. "Tell me now." She nodded, swallowing hard. I saw her, Dorothy said. 6 weeks ago. In the kitchen. Early. Before breakfast. Vincent closed his eyes. She had a vial. Dorothy continued. Clear liquid. She put drops in your coffee. Stirred it. Walked away like it was nothing. Dorothy reached in her purse and pulled out a small, spiral notebook. Its pages were filled edge to edge with careful handwriting. Dates. Times. Observations. July 15th. Nausea. August 3rd. Dizziness. September 10th. Confusion during board meeting. Every entry aligned with days Lillian had insisted on helping with breakfast. You kept getting sicker, Dorothy said. Only on those days. She showed him her phone. Photos. Grainy, but unmistakable. Lillian at the counter. A vial in her hand. Another photo of Lillian's purse. Unzipped. The vial visible inside. I recorded them too, Dorothy said. The sound isn't good, but you can hear them. She pressed play. The audio crackled. Voices muffled by distance and fabric. Marcus and Lillian. Discussing dosage. Discussing timing. And the final dose, Lillian said in one recording. When he signs the company over. Marcus laughed quietly. Symptoms are perfect, Lillian continued. He'll trust us one more time. Vincent sat frozen. This wasn't suspicion anymore. It was a confession. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. Dorothy looked at him. Pain etched into every line of her face. You loved him so much, she said. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. That you'd fire me. And then I couldn't protect you anymore. Her voice broke. 20 years ago, my daughter needed surgery. Stage 3. Insurance wouldn't cover it. You paid everything. You saved her life. I owed you my child's life. Vincent reached for her hand. You didn't owe me anything, he said. The chapel door opened. A woman in her early 50s stepped inside. Badge clipped to her belt. Posture purposeful. Vincent Callahan, she asked. Yes. I'm Detective Karen Bradford, Greenwich PD. They moved to a private consultation room. Bradford recorded everything. Dorothy handed over the notebook, the photos, the recordings. Her hand shook the entire time. Why didn't you report this earlier? Bradford asked gently. I was scared, Dorothy said. Marcus threatened to fire me twice last month. Said I was too nosy. Bradford listened. Carefully. Thoroughly. When Dorothy finished, Bradford leaned back in her chair and studied Vincent. Based on this evidence, she said, your son may be involved in conspiracy to commit murder. The word son sounded hollow now. We'll need search warrants, Bradford continued. Your home. His residence. His office. She paused. Is there anything else you haven't told us? Vincent thought of the cameras. The ones he'd installed 3 weeks ago when his instincts refused to stay quiet. The ones he'd hoped would prove him paranoid. Not yet, he said. Bradford's eyes narrowed slightly. When you're ready, she said, we'll need everything. That afternoon, Vincent made a decision. 2 hours later, he sat across from Bradford again. I installed hidden security cameras 3 weeks ago, he said. Her pen stopped mid-word. You what? Video and audio. Professionally installed. My study. Living room. Why didn't you tell us yesterday? I needed to be sure who I could trust, Vincent said calmly. I've spent my life around people who smile while lying. Bradford watched him closely. Why install them at all? Marcus pushed too hard for this meeting, Vincent said. Lillian's concern for my health felt rehearsed. I needed proof I was imagining things. Bradford didn't speak. Was I? Vincent asked. No, she said quietly. They reviewed the footage together. Timestamp. 2 weeks before the incident. Marcus and Lillian alone in Vincent's study. Lillian held up a vial. This is the final dose, she said. You're sure about the amount? Marcus asked. It'll cause cardiac arrest within hours, Lillian replied. By the time anyone tests for arsenic, it'll be too late. She smiled. Once he signs the company over, Marcus said, we do it that morning. More footage followed. Days of planning. Dosage calculations. Alibis. Marcus discussing selling the company immediately. Lillian researching countries without extradition treaties. When the last clip ended, the room was silent. I watched this every night for 2 weeks, Vincent said, hoping he'd change his mind. Bradford looked at him. He never did, Vincent finished. The warrants were issued that night. The searches happened the next morning. They found the arsenic vial in Lillian's office desk, locked away. Financial records revealed $500,000 transferred slowly into Marcus's personal accounts. Insurance policies surfaced, $7 million on Vincent's life. Marcus named beneficiary. 8 months of planning. Bradford called that evening. We're bringing them in tomorrow, she said. The evidence is overwhelming. What about Lillian? Vincent asked. We'll question her when she's stable. She paused. Desiree will leave everything to Marcus. Vincent looked out the window of the hotel room he'd checked into, unable to sleep in the house that had nearly killed him. I changed it 2 weeks ago, he said, the day after I saw the footage. Ow! If Marcus betrays me, Vincent said calmly, he inherits nothing. Bradford was silent. So he tried to murder you for an inheritance he'd never receive, she said finally. Yes. Does he know? Vincent smiled without humor. Not yet. The slow murder had failed. But the reckoning had just begun. And Vincent Callahan finally understood the most dangerous truth of all. The poison wasn't in the coffee. It was in the bloodline. The first morning Marcus Callahan woke up in custody, he asked one question before anything else. Can I see my father? The officer didn't answer him. By then, the story had already begun to move faster than Marcus could control. Faster than money. Faster than lawyers. Faster than the carefully constructed version of himself he'd spent years rehearsing. Evidence doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about last names or legacy. And it certainly doesn't forget. 6 months passed between arrest and trial. But for Vincent Callahan, time behaved differently now. Days no longer flowed. They stacked. Heavy. Each one another reminder that the boy he had once carried on his shoulders had tried to bury him. Vincent checked out of the house on Round Hill Road the same day the warrants were executed. He left with a single suitcase. No photographs. No mementos. Some places don't deserve nostalgia. He moved into a quiet hotel overlooking the harbor, where the nights were anonymous and the mornings came without ghosts. There, he spent hours meeting with lawyers, detectives, forensic accountants. He answered questions with the calm precision of a man who had spent his life in conference rooms, not courtrooms. Detective Karen Bradford handled the case personally. They sat across from each other more than once, documents spread between them like a map of betrayal. The transfers were deliberate, she said during one meeting, structured to avoid triggering alerts. Your son knew exactly what he was doing. Vincent nodded. And the insurance policies, she continued. $7 million. Taken out 8 months ago, right when the embezzlement began. The timeline was merciless. Money first. Poison second. Inheritance last. On the 4th day of those meetings, Vincent slid a document across the table. My will, he said. Bradford read silently, then aloud. Should my son, Marcus Callahan, be found to have committed betrayal through violence, theft, fraud, or attempted harm, the entirety of my estate shall be placed in trust for the Callahan Foundation for Elder Protection. She looked up. You wrote this 2 weeks before the incident. Yes. So, she said slowly, he attempted to murder you for an inheritance he was already disqualified from receiving. Vincent exhaled. That's the irony, he said. He destroyed his life for nothing. Bradford's phone rang mid-sentence. She stepped out, returned minutes later with a look that told Vincent this story still wasn't finished. A woman just walked into Greenwich PD, she said. Lisa Henderson. She worked with Lillian at Bellingham Pharmaceuticals. Vincent leaned forward. She says arsenic went missing from their labs 6 months ago. 6 months. Before the first symptoms. Before the first drop hit his coffee. Lisa Henderson was 43. Nervous. Racked with guilt that had fermented too long. She told the detectives everything. Lillian's questions. Obsessive. Technical. How long arsenic remained detectable. Whether heart failure could mask poisoning. Which test hospitals ran first. Security footage showed Lillian entering a restricted lab storage area on March 15th. She exited 2 minutes later. Her lab coat pockets noticeably fuller. This proves premeditation, Bradford said later. At least 6 months of planning. 2 weeks after Lisa Henderson came forward, Marcus and Lillian were formally charged. Conspiracy to commit murder. Attempted murder. Embezzlement. Theft of a controlled substance. Bail denied. When Bradford called Vincent with the update, her voice was professional, but there was something underneath it. Respect. He asked to see you, she added. Marcus. He wanted you to visit, she said. Vincent said nothing. Lillian was transferred directly from the hospital to county jail. Her health had stabilized just enough for incarceration. Justice, it seemed, was patient. The trial will probably be in 6 months, Bradford said. His lawyer will try to blame her. Vincent stared out at the water beyond his hotel window. I know, he said, but the cameras don't lie. 6 months later, Stanford Superior Court. The courtroom buzzed with low conversation and restless energy. Media outlets filled the benches. A sketch artist sat near the front, already drawing the outlines of a story that would sell itself. Son poisons father for millions. Marcus sat at the defense table in a dark suit Vincent had bought him the previous Christmas. It fit him well. It always had. Appearances had never been Marcus's weakness. When he saw Vincent enter, he tried to arrange his face into something resembling remorse. Vincent didn't respond. He had seen Marcus's real face too many times on video. The bailiff called the room to order. All rise. Superior Court of Connecticut is now in session. The Honorable Patricia Morrison presiding. The jury filed in. 12 strangers. 12 lives untouched by this family until now. Prosecutor Rachel Thornton stood. Your Honor, the state is ready. As she outlined the charges, Vincent listened without emotion. He already knew every word, every detail. The systematic poisoning, the embezzlement, the insurance fraud. What he hadn't prepared for was how it felt to hear it spoken aloud in public. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was spectacle. On the third day of trial, the courtroom lights dimmed. Rachel Thornton faced the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, you are about to hear the defendants in their own words. The screen flickered to life. Vincent's study appeared, magnified to 20 feet high. Marcus and Lillian sat exactly as they had months earlier, unaware they were being recorded. Marcus's voice filled the room. I can't wait until the old man is gone. The words landed like a physical blow. Vincent didn't look away. The jury leaned forward. Lillian's voice followed, calm and clinical. His blood work would just show heart failure. Perfect crime. A juror gasped. Another covered her mouth. More footage played. Marcus laughing. Tomorrow morning, by evening, we'll be millionaires. That laugh broke the room. Not the words. The joy. The ease with which they celebrated his death. Marcus stared at the table, unable to watch himself. 10 minutes of footage. Dosage discussions. Timing. Plans for the money. When the lights came back on, the courtroom felt heavier, as if everyone inside had aged. Rachel Thornton didn't rush. The prosecution calls Dorothy Palmer. Dorothy walked to the stand in a navy dress. Her hands trembled as she raised them to swear the oath. How long did you work for Vincent Callahan? Thornton asked gently. 20 years. Did you observe anything unusual about Lillian Callahan's behavior? Dorothy told the truth. About the vial. The drops. The way Vincent's health declined. Why didn't you tell him immediately? Dorothy's voice cracked. Because he loved his son so much, she said. I was afraid he wouldn't believe me, and then I couldn't protect him anymore. So you gathered evidence. Yes. I had to prove it. I had to save him. Tears streamed down her face. He saved my daughter's life, Dorothy said. I couldn't let them kill him. The courtroom erupted in applause before Judge Morrison restored order. Marcus looked up then. Hatred burned in his eyes. The prosecution called Lisa Henderson. Financial analysts. Insurance investigators. Each witness added weight. Each fact stacked neatly atop the last. When the prosecution rested, Richard Holloway stood for the defense. He was polished, confident. Marcus Callahan is not a monster, he said. He was manipulated by a woman with expertise in chemistry and psychology. Vincent watched the jury. They weren't convinced. Rachel Thornton rose for rebuttal. The defense wants you to believe Marcus Callahan was afraid, she said calmly. Let's listen to fear. She played the clip again. I can't wait until the old man is gone. Thornton paused the video. Does that sound like fear? Silence. That company should have been mine years ago, Marcus said in another clip. Does that sound like manipulation? Thornton asked. Or entitlement? She let the quiet stretch. Then Vincent was called. He walked to the stand slowly. My name is Vincent Callahan, he said. Marcus is my only child. His hand shook. I raised him to value honor. Somewhere along the way, I failed. The poison, he told them, wasn't the worst part. It was watching him smile at me every day while planning my death. He turned to Marcus. You didn't just try to kill my body, Vincent said. You killed the father who loved you. Marcus finally looked up. Vincent saw nothing there. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, Their faces told him everything. Guilty. On every count. Life imprisonment without parole. Marcus looked back once as he was led away. Vincent waited for remorse. There was only rage. Blood, Vincent understood then, meant nothing. Character was everything. And his son had chosen. The sound of the gavel didn't echo the way Vincent Callahan expected it to. He had imagined it would land like thunder. Loud, decisive, final. Instead, it sounded small. Controlled. Almost polite. One measured strike that ended a chapter of his life he never would have chosen to read. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The words followed, steady and unemotional, delivered by Judge Patricia Morrison, as if she were sentencing strangers. Perhaps, by that point, that was exactly what Marcus and Lillian had become. Vincent remained seated as the courtroom erupted into motion. Chairs scraped against the floor. Reporters leaned toward each other, already shaping headlines. The bailiff approached Marcus, handcuffs clicking shut around the wrists Vincent once held when teaching his son how to ride a bike. Marcus turned only once. Vincent waited, despite himself, for something human to surface. Regret. Shame. A crack in the armor. There was nothing. Only fury. Not over what he'd done, but over the fact that it hadn't worked. Vincent didn't raise his eyes again as Marcus was led away. The son he had raised was already gone. That realization hadn't come with the verdict. It had arrived months earlier in a darkened study, watching footage he wished had never existed. 3 weeks after the verdict, Vincent's lawyer executed the will Marcus had tried to kill him for. Every asset, every property, every account, $22 million in real estate holdings. Investment portfolios built over decades. The Greenwich house that still smelled faintly of Eleanor's perfume on warm afternoons. All of it transferred into an irrevocable trust. The Callahan Foundation for Elder Protection. Marcus received nothing. When the prison chaplain informed him, the guards reported that Marcus destroyed his cell, screamed until his voice gave out, had to be restrained and placed in solitary confinement. Later, the chaplain visited Vincent. He kept saying one thing. The chaplain said quietly, over and over. Vincent didn't ask what it was. I killed him for nothing. There would be no redemption arc. Lillian filed an appeal that June. It was denied without comment. She remained in maximum security at York Correctional Institution, her health deteriorating slowly, the same way Vincent's had, once. Vincent felt nothing when he heard. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just absence. He sold a house on Round Hill Road in early May. Too many ghosts, he told a realtor. She nodded. In Greenwich. Everyone knew the story by then. The poison. The housekeeper. The cameras. The son who chose murder over love. Vincent moved the foundation's headquarters to downtown Stamford. 3,000 square feet of clean lines, warm lighting, accessible entrances, and open doors. No marble. No grandeur. Just a place where people could walk in and feel safe. The mission was simple. Protect the elderly from abuse, financial, physical, emotional, especially when the abuser was family. Legal aid, investigative support, emergency housing, counseling, advocacy. Dorothy Palmer became the foundation's executive director. The woman who had served coffee and toast for 20 years now led a staff of 9 professionals. Attorneys, social workers, investigators, advocates. She was transformed, not hardened, sharpened. She spoke softly but without hesitation. Challenged prosecutors, questioned defense attorneys, addressed community forums filled with people who finally saw their own fear reflected in someone else's courage. James Mitchell called 2 weeks after the verdict. They had been roommates at Yale 47 years earlier. Business partners, brothers by choice. I heard what you're building, James said. I want in. He joined the board. Donated $100,000, sat at the conference table during the first meeting, and said something Vincent would never forget. Family isn't who you're born to, James said. It's who shows up when it matters. Dorothy met Vincent's eyes across the table. No words were needed. Within 3 months, the foundation had intervened in 12 cases. 7 survivors relocated to safe housing. Over $400,000 recovered. 3 criminal prosecutions initiated. 1 case stayed with Vincent. Margaret Brennan, 76, retired librarian. Her daughter-in-law had drained her accounts for 2 years while smiling across the dinner table. $200,000 gone. When confronted with evidence, Margaret's son called the police himself. 3 days later, Margaret came to the office. She took Vincent's hands in hers. "You saved my life," she whispered. Vincent shook his head gently. "No," he said. "We're just passing it forward." That evening, Dorothy brought 2 cups of coffee into his office. The aroma filled the room. Rich, warm, safe. "To second chances," she said. Vincent raised his cup. "To chosen family." They drank together as the city lights flickered on outside the windows. 18 months later, the foundation had helped 83 families, recovered $3 million, helped pass stronger elder abuse laws in Connecticut. Dorothy testified before the state legislature, appeared on national television. Time magazine named her one of the most influential people in healthcare advocacy. Vincent watched her through the glass wall of his office one morning, leading a support group of survivors, people who had been betrayed by those they trusted most. James stood in the doorway, coffee in hand. "Marcus sent another letter," he said carefully. Vincent nodded. "Still unopened. Some betrayals don't heal. They scar." At 79, Vincent Callahan understood something he hadn't at 69. Legacy wasn't what you left behind. It was what you protected. The foundation grew. Safe houses opened. Eleanor's name was placed above a door meant to shelter the vulnerable. And every morning, Vincent drank his coffee without fear. Because loyalty, he learned too late, but not too late, was never about blood. It was about choice. And the family he chose saved his life. Outside, the city woke. Somewhere, another elderly person was being exploited by someone they trusted. But now, they had somewhere to turn. And Vincent Callahan had finally built something that couldn't be poisoned.